blessed with 2 pregnancies, 2 births, and 2 postpartum periods. And each one had several ups and downs. See what you think. This all started in a strange way. Just a few months before our wedding, my fiancé became critically ill, and he was in the ICU for weeks. When he was life-flighted to another hospital, I almost canceled our wedding. But Carl made it down the aisle. Then we went out of state for several more weeks for more medical reasons. My work as a fitness writer and anatomy educator kept me busy during this time. My dogs ushered me outside for fresh air, and my family, friends, faith, and plenty of sleep carried me through the crisis. After all this, we were very ready to settle down. Another adventure was standing right in our path. 3 months after getting married, I got pregnant. And I was really happy that it happened right away, because I worried that it might take me years like it did my mom. Carl was a bit shocked, but he was excited, and he called all of his family that same day. I love thrift shopping, so I began collecting maternity clothes and baby stuff right away. My naturopath asked me if I would birth with a midwife, and I said, "What's a midwife?" My sister and I were born in a hospital in New Jersey, and my mom had a very positive experience. So I thought that's the path I would go. But curiosity got the better of me, and the first time I walked through the doors of the Bozeman Birth Center, it felt familiar. The midwives were like long-lost sisters to me, and I fell in love with all of it and this different path. The worst part of pregnancy for me was the nausea and the fatigue and the night wakings. But my freelance work allowed me to nap and sleep pretty much whenever I felt the urge and work in between. I didn't realize at the time that this so-called freedom was actually quite problematic. Our son Isaac is now 3.5. He was born during a thunderstorm with golden orange hair into the water at the birth center, just days after our first wedding anniversary. I felt so empowered after 15 hours of labor and giving birth, like anything was possible. A parade of guests occupied our spare room on and off for months, and lots of local friends stopped by, and I welcomed the company. But it and my work took priority over rest, and this would come to have a huge impact. When I was pregnant, I remember somebody saying, "Birth is gonna rock your world, girl." This is true, but sleep deprivation is what did me in. After weeks and weeks and weeks of it, I became emotionally fragile, overly sensitive, amongst other things. I'd call Carl at work almost daily, crying, saying, "I can't do this. How do people do this? Can you come home soon?" Night wakings were surging cortisol and adrenaline through my veins, making it really hard for me to sleep in between our hourly breastfeeding sessions. And whenever I dozed off, it seemed like it was just minutes before Isaac was awake again. That and looking at screens during the night was a problem too, but I didn't know or acknowledge that at the time. One winter morning, I was sitting in my car with Isaac in the back seat, and we were parked outside the massage school. I was eager to get back to teaching, except I was in tears. I didn't want to go inside. I was exhausted. I stopped teaching, and I stayed home and focused on writing and breastfeeding. 3 months postpartum, sleep got worse. Not better, like everyone kept promising me. I wanted to sleep like the human body wants to breathe oxygen. My desire was primal, and I stalked sleep advice with every spare moment I had. But nothing seemed to work. At 4 months postpartum, I met Myra, a pediatric sleep and infant mental health specialist. Yep, pediatric sleep and infant mental health. That's what I said when I heard that. Amen. She saved my sanity, and she truly rocked my world. Isaac was overstimulated and sleep deprived. That made 2 of us. So nothing I was reading in these books was going to work for us. No magic formulas, no magic sleep suits. It was up to me, with the help of Myra, to hone in on Isaac's natural rhythm by shortening his wake windows drastically from what I was giving him and paying attention to his sleep cues. I resonated deeply with this holistic approach. She encouraged me and Isaac to get outside more during the day and dim the lights in our house in the evening to help realign us with our circadian rhythm. She encouraged us all to go to bed earlier, and so Carl and I realized if we made dinner earlier, that would help. And in order to do that, we had to plan our meals ahead of time for the week. It made a difference. I stayed home more than I wanted to so that I could respect Isaac's need to take these frequent naps and catch up on sleep. And sometimes I felt trapped and very lonely. But texting with Myra about sleep, it kept me company, and it was interesting. Plus, to tell you the truth, slowing down is exactly what I needed in my life. It was replenishing. And the predictability of this new routine, it introduced me to a different kind of freedom that serves me very well as a mother. So when Isaac turned 9 months old, he was sleeping through the night and napping great, but I wasn't. I became obsessed with sleep science and circadian rhythm because I wanted to sleep more, sure. But it seemed like this really well-kept secret in my career as a health and fitness professional. Reading the research helped me come to terms with my need to eliminate screens from my evenings, commit to a consistent early bedtime and regular wake-up time, something I resisted my entire life, and take a nap every day. And at 12 months postpartum, I was gifted with 9 hours a night of sleep. I felt amazing. But then, Carl crashed. He had been holding it together so I could fall apart. He said he missed his wife. He felt like a third wheel. I didn't understand. We argued in circles about this for months. And then we began to reconnect in couples counseling and by going on a date every week. We found ourselves naturally talking about having another baby after a few months of that. And just before Isaac turned 2, I was pregnant again. And we were happy, because this is what we had wanted. But the reality of being pregnant is different than the wish. It brought up fears for both of us about postpartum. But this time, it could be different, right? Maybe easier? I would take a break from work, and instead of shopping for baby stuff, I looked for people and practices to support me. At this point, as you can imagine, I was very committed to my sleep routine and loving every minute that I got. But I wanted more. I started seeing my own counselor twice a month, and I went to weekly support groups. I met mamas of all ages, and it brought me new perspective. I discovered a more authentic and confident version of myself as a mother. I cultivated healthier boundaries and develop some new coping skills. I read books about postpartum, and that caused me to interview postpartum doulas. I saw a pelvic floor physical therapist. I saw massage therapists. I tried health kinesiology. And of course, I was seeing my midwife. And sometimes I felt guilty and weird having so much self-care appointments in my book, in my calendar. But I really looked forward to these appointments. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was going to need all of this support. A different experience was coming. Our anatomy scan ultrasound went long, and when the radiologist came in and said he needed a closer look at the baby's heart, chills permeated my body like daggers. An echocardiogram in Billings revealed that our baby boy had transposition of the great arteries, TGA. This meant, in order to survive, he would need these arteries switched at birth with open heart surgery in a children's hospital out of state. Oddly enough, the doctors swept the severity away, saying, "This is a big deal. It's rare, but you can probably still have a vaginal delivery just under close monitoring, and he'll probably have a pretty normal life." Okay. To me, this felt unfair and impossible. My second birth and postpartum experience felt like it was being swept away too. And easier was definitely not an option. I wanted a home birth. I wanted to at least labor in the water. I wanted to recover in my own bed. But instead of skin-to-skin snuggles, I'd be pumping breast milk around the clock while shuttling between a temporary home in Denver and a hospital with my newborn multiple times a day for weeks and weeks. This is not what I had imagined. I tried to create a new vision while still holding on to what I wanted. I rented a home in Denver, and I invited family to come stay with us. And as plane tickets got booked, I felt comforted. Isaac and my work kept me very busy for the rest of my pregnancy, but I would sneak in sessions online on the TGA support group, gawking at photos of babies who had open heart surgery. And then my self-care appointments would bring me back into my pregnancy as I moved my body through sequences of Kundalini yoga, calm my nervous system with prenatal massage, crystals, essential oils, baths. I practiced hypnobirthing meditations, and I visualized what I wanted, best case scenarios. I prayed that everything would be okay. All my intentions, they didn't seem to change our ultimate fate, but I do believe that they prepared me to endure what was coming. Everything about us was complicated. The baby got into this tangled breech transverse position that doctors had never even really seen before, and so he was born by cesarean. Little Felix lost oxygen during the birth process and suffered from brain bleeds, which meant he was committed to a cooling cap and a ventilator, and we couldn't hold him. We could barely touch him. His tiny brand new body looked like an octopus covered in leads, wires, IVs, gauze. To me, it was strangely familiar, like the photos I'd seen online, and the time I'd spent in the hospital with Carl. But it was freaky, because this baby was just safe inside my body hours ago, and now the doctors were working around the clock to try and stabilize him for days. At 6 days old, Felix had his open heart surgery. The wait felt like forever, but at 12 days old, we got to hold him for the very first time. At 4.5 weeks old, Felix was discharged from the hospital on oxygen with a long tail of tubing, and we departed Denver. It was Easter Day 1 year ago. We'll be celebrating his birthday a little later next week. Spending 6 weeks in Denver during this fragile time of life, it was a whirlwind. But it was what I prayed for. It seemed okay. I have special family memories from that time. My sister giggling on the slide with Isaac at the playground. My mom having marching bands around the house with him. My dad playing the piano, and Carl's parents cooking us yummy meals. We were surrounded by love in that temporary home and at the hospital. And when we returned to Bozeman, all we had to do was ask for support. So when we did return to Bozeman, the surgeries seemed like they just faded away into the distance because now we had normal problems, like sleep and breastfeeding. Felix took to the bottle, so Carl was able to feed him through many nights, and I believe this formed them a very special bond. And I got my precious sleep. When I look back on my 2 postpartum experiences, I feel like sleep deprivation was way worse than relocation and infant open heart surgery. These days, I get to hold Felix anytime I want. And 1 minute, my boys will be playing an adorable peekaboo game that tickles my heart to the core. And the next minute, everybody's crying. I ride this roller coaster of motherhood with a great deal of comfort and serenity because of all the tools I've picked up during the last 4 years. Because of naps and knowing that we're all going to sleep tonight. Plus, Felix's sweet, smiley eyes, they affirm that what I thought after Isaac's birth is true. Anything is possible. Yeah.